Killing Floor Incursion is the first VR game that I've spent money on and actually felt buyer's remorse, and the saddest part of that statement is that I really shouldn't have, given what it's based off. Honestly though, it shouldn't really come as a shock that this didn't turn out all that well. It's a game based off a game series that focuses around the player moving around 99% of the time and shooting enemies. And lo and behold, that doesn't actually translate that well into a game where you're stationary most of the time. Now I know no one gives two shits about VR gaming, but let's take a look at it anyway. If nothing more for me, it can be part of the healing process and make me feel less guilty about parting ways with my hard-earned cash. So Incursion does at least take a bit of an interesting spin on the tied formula from the other games. You're not just holding out against waves of Zeds in between buying incrementally better items at the trader. In this one, you're a soldier that's been inadvertently trapped inside a training simulation that's had its safety protocols disabled. What this really means is that they can move you from one random location to another with little explanation, and not need to have any kind of cohesive transition between all of the 4 levels in the game. Yeah, that's right, 4 levels, count them. Being stuck in the simulation, your job is to remove the viruses from the system. Now this involves moving through 4 different locations, solving puzzles and shooting lots of Zeds. Like most VR games, you can equip weapons in both your left and right hand and use them independently. The arsenal begins with measly pistols, which still end up being one of the most effective weapons for the entire game. Before you get your hands on a shotgun, machine gun, a fire axe and another knife for melee weapons. Using the two-handed weapons like the assault rifle and the shotgun requires holding onto it with 2 hands. To reduce both the recoil and the weapon shake, and in a couple of areas you'll also get to use a sniper rifle, peering down the scope and taking out the husk type enemies on nearby rooftops. However, this lineup does seem pretty elementary considering it's based off a game series that had like, half a dozen different pistols, submachine guns, shotguns and assault rifles, not to mention the downright novelty weapons like the microwave gun or some of the great melee weapons the Berserker could use. Regardless of what weapon you're using, when you kill a Zed they'll make an awful amount of mess, and it's the kind of gore that makes an otherwise average game a little bit more enjoyable. Popping heads with a well-placed pistol shot or blowing the arms off a Zed with the machine gun honestly never gets old, and the gore might not be as hardcore as it was in Killing Floor 2. I mean, you're not going to be painting the walls in blood, but it's still pretty good. Right off the bat though, the problem with Incursion starts to rear its ugly, infected head when you try to equip any of those weapons. In similar fashion to a game like Arizona Sunshine, these weapons are attached to various holsters on the player's body. Pistols from the holsters on your chest, and bigger weapons like the axe and the shotgun from your back. And if that's not enough, a flashlight also hangs from the center of your chest, and grenades hang from 2 other holsters on your legs as well. Now look, this all sounds good on paper, but far too frequently when trying to grab a pistol, you'll grab the flashlight instead, or vice versa. And similarly with trying to grab the ammo and health items off the ground, you'll often grab the grenade or a pistol. I kind of got the hang of this by the end of the game, but that was only really because I was just being super conscious of how wishy-washy these controls were, so I don't know if that really excuses it on the whole. This game also has some of the worst teleporting controls in any VR game I've played so far, and look, that's genuinely not an exaggeration, they're just fucking horrible. Now look, my stats for this are pretty low. I haven't really played all that many other VR shooting games with this similar movement style, but in similar games like Arizona Sunshine and Robo Recoil, this kind of thing worked seamlessly. In that game I could get where I wanted to go in a flash with no dramas, but in Incursion it just quite often simply doesn't work. During the tutorial there was a narration that said that teleporting around too much would cause your character to have some kind of nervous breakdown or something along those lines. But all that does is slow down the speed. The reticle moves when you're trying to teleport large distances, preventing you from simply cheesing around enemies. But even when you're not teleporting frequently, I mean trying to teleport any distance, far or close, it still doesn't work. The marker will be on the ground showing your intended teleporting destination, but nothing happens. Just on that concept alone though, the idea of limiting how much you can move in a game where you get swarmed by enemies from all angles is kind of idiotic. I mean, it would be like playing Doom and after you strafed around for too long, the game simply stops you from strafing for a short period. You'll notice how much fun this is during the sort of boss fights that occur at the end of most levels, where you're just holding out in a small area against a bigger Z type like a Scrake or a Flesh Pound. Where you'll find yourself stuck in one place as the whole gang just beats the ever-loving piss out of you from all angles. There's not even the option to do a quick 180 either, instead you've got to rotate yourself manually a couple of times to look behind you. Good thing you don't have to worry about Zeds sneaking up behind you, right? Now, playing it with locomotion controls is an option, but if you're like me and that kind of thing makes you sick within minutes, well, then it's not really an effective alternative, is it? I wish that was all the issues I had with this, but it's not, and it's just the start in a long laundry list of bad ideas. How about how once you finish the whole game, you can't even replay the earlier levels with the unlocked weapons? It forces you to go back and use the guns as you originally found them, removing any semblance of fun you could have had from replaying the campaign. There's no mid-mission checkpoints either, so you have to finish an entire level in one sitting. I found that one out the hard way when I quit on the final boss to go make myself a cup of tea, only to have it load me back from the start of the level. Thanks. Puzzles are often obscure and hard to figure out, but not in a challenging sense, but in the way that the game does a horrible job of communicating what you're actually supposed to be doing. A good analogy here would be that if you were playing Tetris and no one told you that you could rotate the blocks. Now look, I will say one thing about this game, and that is that it does look pretty damn good. Running on the Unreal 4 engine, it pulls off some really spooky and eerie looking environments. I mean, the areas set in the catacombs, for instance, are just oozing in this thick horror atmosphere. I often just found myself kind of standing there looking around with my flashlight, admiring the texture work or some of the other various visual effects they've crammed into it. Initially too, whilst you're still grappling with learning the controls, it's a downright frightening game. The first level has you in this small farmhouse trying to repair some kind of system glitch, and as you're doing it, you can hear the thudding footsteps of Zeds upstairs as they stomp around, and it's kind of scary stuff. First time I saw a crawler run up to me, I metaphorically pissed my pants, and the same thing when you see a scrake bearing down on you. You'll probably fill your trousers. Though with the scrake, that's also because you're not sure if the stars will align and the controls will let you get out of the way in time. And that's really where it all starts to fall apart as soon as you start to see the cracks in the gameplay, and believe me, there's a lot of cracks. That fear is just replaced with frustration. And then you see those moments when everything works the way it's supposed to, like you might be positioned in a corner with an axe in one hand and the machine gun in the other. Z time kicks in and it looks absolutely gorgeous as a streak of blood and guts flies right past your face at that perfect time. The game has lots of these types of moments when everything works, but they're overshadowed by the moments when it doesn't. And on top of all of this, it's super short. There's 4 levels in total and there's no real reason to replay them. There's no collectibles to go back and hunt for, and like I said, you can't even go back with all the weapons unlocked and Rambo your way through the game because, you know, that would have been a good idea. And I think the controls are the single biggest factor as to why this whole thing is so disappointing. Now, I don't know if it would get any easier if I spent another 20 hours playing it, but to be honest, I don't think that's the point. Controls in these VR games should be easy to pick up and play. You shouldn't need to spend 2 or 3 hours learning the ropes and grappling with bugs. Most importantly, they should work 100% of the time. It's just that simple. That's why all the best VR games out there are the ones that you can get the hang of in minutes. So you and your buddy can swap the headset back and forth every 5 minutes to let the other person have a turn. I mean, god damn it, Fruit Ninja VR is the kind of thing a toddler could play, but it works 100% of the time and it does exactly what you want it to do, in regards to how it all controls. Maybe Killing Floor Incursion is fun in co-op, but who knows. I've tried 3 times now to get a game going, any game going, and nothing happens, but apparently this is a known issue they're working on, so hopefully that gets fixed. Overall though, I would not recommend Killing Floor Incursion, and the price they're charging for this thing, considering the state it's in, is theft. Killing Floor 2 and even Killing Floor 1 have far more enjoyable gameplay and are much cheaper to get your hands on, and they've also still got active communities. Not to mention mastering everything those games has to offer can literally take you thousands of hours. Killing Floor Incursion will last you 3 or 4 hours tops, and none of those are going to be particularly memorable, and it's a damn shame.